I'm being joined by Dr. Paul Alaje, who is live for us virtually to give us a sense of what this means. 47.9 trillion proposition for the 2025 budget, and we now know some of the assumptions for the 2025-2027 MTEF. And some of these assumptions, Dr. Alaje, give us a sense. Are they realistic?
Thank you so very much for having me. I have carefully looked at the statements issued by the minister today, the briefing he had with the gentlemen of the press, and I've considered that first, we are looking at a budget plan of 47.9 trillion, approximately $28.18 billion. That is far from what we did last year. Last year was a bit more than this. In fact, I can say that for part of 2021, 2022, in dollar terms, we had more. I've also seen that government is projecting an estimate of over 2 million barrels of crude production per day. But in the real sense, what the National Bureau of Statistics says we did in Q1 was between 1.3 to 1.4 million barrels a day. Government is also looking at an exchange rate of about 1,400. Meanwhile, in the real sense, what is applicable at official window, it's over 1,600. And on the parallel market, about 1,750. Now we say we want to converge our exchange rate, but from this budget parameter, we're looking at something a bit low. So while I think that, yes, exchange rate, I don't see exchange rate going below 1,400 if we continue the policy options that we have adopted. But I also don't see us produce up to 2 million barrels a day, as mentioned by the minister, given the current reality. Do we have capacity to do up to 2 million barrels a day? Certainly, yes. But do we think that with the current economic environment, we can get up to that? Well, I have a lot of reservation for that. Government is projecting about 13.8 trillion naira deficit. That's budget deficit. But in the real sense, I think this will increase a little because revenue, in spite of the fact that naira has been devalued and subsidy over 30 trillion naira from the 47 trillion naira that is expected. When you remove 13.8, we're still speaking of far more than 30 trillion naira in revenue, either as part of a fact that goes to the federal government or other revenues that government may be looking at. So I think there are some things that could be achieved, and there are some things that is certainly may not be what we achieve. The budget is much lower in dollar terms. It's much lower than what we have done in previous time. But when you are looking at the naira terms, the budget is much, much higher. But when you compare, you know that. But the real sense, we are having relatively a lower budget.
So it is those some of these assumptions that I imagine whether or not we're just living in a bubble or the government is really making realistic assumptions for Nigerians to know whether or not we're in the right direction. You look at it, the GDP growth year on year, about 2.98% as at Q1 of 2024. And I'm not sure whether we have experienced as much GDP growth rate of up to 4%. But look at the assumption. What do you think makes the government think that we could achieve up to 4% growth rate? And that is what they have captured in the MTEF.
Well, government is looking at about 3.87, approximately 3.9 GDP growth rate, and maybe some media organization has quoted it as 4%. But in the real sense, neither 1% or 10% is sufficient. And this is the reason. When you study United Arab Emirates, the GDP of the country was about $400 billion. The same with Nigeria's GDP in 2022. Today, the Nigeria's GDP is less than $310 billion. So when you say that our GDP is growing and you convert Nigeria's GDP to dollar terms to compare Nigeria with the rest of the world, then you'll be wondering, how can a GDP be growing, but the sum total of the GDP is reducing? And that is why some of us have said, if we must devalue the currency, it must be that we become a major exporter. We have electricity that is stable, not what do we call it now? National grid that is collapsing from time to time, almost on weekly basis, because eventually the goal of the president is that when we devalue, we are going to encourage exports. But the environment for export is not there. No wonder I saw Manufacturing Association of Nigeria and Lagos Chambers of Commerce, I beg your pardon, joined the campaign to say that we need to peg the Naira. And my advice has been, peg the Naira to 1,000. Unfortunately, if you don't do it this year, if you are looking at doing it next year, then even you might lose the opportunity to put it at 1,000. Because if you don't, then we will have a lot more to pay. Look at the subnational. In spite of the humongous amount of money, bigger than what they are getting in 2020, what they got in 2022 and what they got in 2021, they are getting much more now. But when you look at their debt profile, it has also soared. Just recently, National Bureau of Statistics and Debt Management Office revealed that Nigeria debt profile is now 132 trillion naira compared to what it was, about 5, 6, 7 years ago. Devaluation certainly has a role to play. You're also seeing this budget, 47 trillion naira compared to when we were doing 23, when we did about 28. Now we can see 47. But wait a minute. This 27 trillion naira, how many SUVs are we going to buy for government functionaries? What was the rate of SUV in the previous budget? What will be the rate of SUVs in this budget? I'm sorry, I have to just highlight SUV as an example. What does that mean? For every import, compared to what we did in 2022, what we did in 2023, we will certainly pay more. So the impact of this huge budget in Naira terms, quote and unquote, may not be felt by Nigerians. Why? The reason is because it's an estimate of both income and expenditure. The expenditure will in fact grow much higher because of exchange rates.
I want us to wrap up quickly in just about 30 seconds on this matter. Two things I can imagine could be happening or on the minds of the Bola Tinubu team, the economic team, when they are putting these assumptions together, is either they are foreseeing a growth that based on a particular pattern that some of us do not know about. At the customs conference, they're talking about custom eating 5 trillion higher than what they are projected for 2024, and the year is not over yet. The NSA has announced that we are already hitting 1.8 million barrels per day in oil production, which is good news. And maybe that's the reason why they think we might be able to hit 2 million barrels per day. But it could be there are expectations that we do not know based on a pattern, or there are some things that they have at the back of their minds to do in 2025. In all of this, what word of caution or what exactly should be the expectation of the average Nigerian going into that year and the nearest future within the what MTED captured? Just in about 30 or 40 seconds.
Well, I remember first week of January, I spoke with your colleague on an interview when the 2024 budget was passed. And she mentioned to me that this budget is a budget of renewed hope. I said, I hope there will be hope at the end of the tunnel. But what I can see is that the single largest item in that budget was debt service. Today, we must service all our debt, especially those monies that are collected in foreign currency. Whether we'll be able to implement all the capital expenditure in the budget is a different ballgame. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, we have done nearly 11 months in 2024. Where is the impact? That does not mean government has not done anything. I will be very fair. Government have made some moves. But I'm saying in the reality of the economy that we found ourselves, I think we need to do more. I understand that it's trying to raise a bond about 1 point something billion euro. Government is trying to raise it to finance this budget. My caution is we need to be wary of further external loan. I had a research I did in 2023, and it revealed that for now, Nigeria should be wary of collecting further foreign loan because it has over 80% negative impact on the economy. I projected that last year, our debt profile, maybe this year I said, this year, our debt profile will cross 100 trillion naira. Little did I know that before the end of the year, we would have done 132 trillion naira in debt profile. Just imagine, what the service will be. If it's just as
Dr.
2% or 3%. So that's what the president has said.
Right.
Ours is to provide support and guidance as far as economics is concerned.
Dr. Alaje, thank you so much. Chief Economist at IBM Professionals, thank you so much indeed for your time. Let's go.